Zercher barbell squat. Now, great exercise. When performing and setting it up, again, you'd be facing this direction, grabbing the bar and then performing the exercise. So you can see where you're going when you're putting the weight back, because that's really important. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to do it facing the other way so you can see what I'm doing. Now, some things to keep in mind with the setup before we even begin. You want the bar placed on the J hooks at about waist height. Just above or just below is fine. That way it's going to be easy with your setup. Second, something to keep in mind, it may be uncomfortable on your elbows when performing this exercise, and that's completely fine. It's safe. If it's really that bad, what you can do is get some padding, like what we'd use on a hip thrust pad, a yoga mat, a shirt, a jumper, whatever. The important thing is to sort of just breathe through it, and you should be fine. It's not a big deal. It's not going to hurt you permanently or anything like that. At the very most, you might get a small bruise, but even then, that's very, very rare. So, setting up for the exercise. You're going to come under. The bar is going to be resting in your elbow crease, just like so. Hands come up together. We're going to lift the weight up. Step forward. Conscious of your posture. Feet are hip width or just outside of hip width. Good posture. You're going to come down into a normal squat. Simple. Take a breath in, brace. The big things to focus on when performing it correctly, on a side note real quick, you see how that was harder for me to put back? That's why you always want to face the rack when doing it. So, big things to focus on when performing this exercise, maintaining your posture. You don't want to collapse when coming down into the squat. You want to focus on keeping the weight in your midfoot. That part is key. And lastly, you want to focus on range of motion. Ideally, you want to go as low as you can, assuming you do not lose control. That's the key part to remember. Some people often go too low to the point where they can't come up and the position of the movement actually changes because they're sacrificing technique for depth. But majority of the time, it's more of a case of you just not going deep enough. So don't be afraid to push yourself and practice full range of motion. That's key. So do that by starting nice and light to begin with, and then building up from that point. That way, your progress will be relevant to good form, as opposed to lifting heavy straight away and you having poor range of motion. When it comes to foot placement, generally it's going to be hip width or just outside of hip width. Some people can go wider, and that's fine. See what feels comfortable. You'll know what feels comfortable because it'll feel better on your hips, so play with that position. And then toe placement, slightly pointed out is general rule of thumb for most people. Some like to have it straight, some like it to have it further than pointed out, and that's fine. What's more important is that you focus on keeping the weight through your midfoot and that your knee is tracking in line with your toes. We don't want to be in a position where we're here or here. We just want to be in a neutral position where my kneecap is physically in line with my toes as I perform the squat up and down.